So I want you to imagine a 500-pound African lion just resting its massive, highly lethal jaw right over the neck of an 11-pound miniature dachshund.
Which is terrifying.
Right. I mean, every instinct in your brain is screaming that you are about to watch a predator just casually eat its prey.
Yeah, of course.
But then the dog starts meticulously cleaning the lion's teeth, and the lion just lies there, completely relaxed.
It's wild.
It really is. So today we're looking at the hard science of why nature's most, rigid rule book, which is genetics, is actually kind of optional.
Very optional, as it turns out.
Right. We are pulling apart this incredibly exhaustive ethological report. It's titled Taxonomic Fluidity and Interspecies Affiliation.
It's a mouthful, but the data is it's fascinating.
It really is. The mission of this deep dive today is to decode the science behind 10 seminal cases of these unlikely animal friendships, right? And we want to figure out how and why animals completely rewrite their own biological programming.
Because that's exactly what they're doing. They're rewriting it.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. We usually think of an animal's instincts like a factory reset smartphone.
Like a hard-coded operating system.
Right, an OS that says you must hunt, you must flee, or you must mate. But what this report shows is that genetics are really just kind of a preliminary architectural blueprint.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
And extreme environments or trauma, they act like a rogue contractor, just coming in and altering the whole building on the fly. And that allows an apex predator to literally befriend its prey.
Which, honestly, it forces a complete paradigm shift in how we understand mammalian and avian nervous system.
Oh, absolutely.
To really grasp how that rogue contractor changes the building, we have to look at two core scientific frameworks.
Okay, lay them out for us.
So first is neoteny. We all know neoteny is basically the retention of juvenile traits into adulthood. It keeps animals in that plastic, moldable state of learning.
Like how puppies stay playful, right?
Right, exactly. But what this data shows is that extreme trauma can essentially artificially induce a neotenic window.
Why artificially?
Yeah, it forces an adult apex predator back into a state of highly moldable social learning. It basically suppresses the territorial aggression that comes with sexual maturity.
Wow, okay. And the second framework?
The second is the surrogate kinship model. When highly social animals are deprived of their own kind, their brains don't just, shut down.
They don't just give up.
No, they actively span the environment for what we call biological placeholders. They're looking for anything that gives them essential sensory cues.
Like what kind of cues?
Like rhythmic breathing, a specific physical mass, or warmth. The brain just accepts a functional substitute and wires itself to that new companion.
Okay, so trauma literally scrambles the standard imprinting process.
Basically, yes.
That perfectly explains the case of Owen and Melizzo.
Yeah.
Because during the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami...
Oh, this is such a powerful example.
It really is. So there's this 600-pound juvenile hippopotamus named Owen, and he gets swept out to sea from the Sabaki River in Kenya.
Just completely separated from his pod.
Right? Tumbling in the ocean for days. And when this massive rescue operation finally gets him to Haller Park in Mombasa, I mean, his stress hormones were just through the roof.
Extreme hypervigilance.
Exactly. So they put him in an enclosure with Mizzi, who is a 130-year-old Aldabra giant tortoise. And Owen immediately tries to hide behind this ancient tortoise.
Which is the exact hiding behind mother behavior that a hippocalf does in the wild.
Yes. But why a tortoise?
Well, the mechanism there is purely about sensory substitution. Think about it. A hippocalf's survival depends entirely on the constant physical presence of a massive dark-colored mother.
Oh, right. And they stay with him for up to 4 years.
Right. So in Owen's highly traumatized, flooded neural state, Mizzi's large domed shell and his dark, earthy coloration, it served as the perfect structural placeholder.
Because the tortoise is basically just a giant, immovable object of safety.
Exactly. It's static and predictable.
But the behavioral synchronization they achieved is what really caught my eye. I mean, Owen essentially learned how to navigate this new place by mirroring the tortoise's eating habits.
And their communication system was amazing.
Yeah, because Mizzi would use this gentle tail nibbling to tell Owen which direction to go, right? Like substituting the physical nudges a hippo mom would use.
And they slept in constant physical contact. I mean, Owen resting his 600-pound head on the tortoise's shell.
It acted like a neurological regulator for him.
It did regulate his nervous system, yeah. But, it also demonstrates the structural limits of these bonds.
I mean,
Well, by age 3, Owen had grown to nearly twice Mizzy's size, so what was just a playful nudge from a hippo suddenly became a literal crushing risk to a 130-year-old shell.
oh man, so they had to separate them.
They did, for Mizzy's safety. But Mizzy served his purpose. He was a vital bridge relationship.
He gave Owen the psychological scaffolding he needed to survive the trauma.
Right, until he was stable enough to be integrated with a female hippo.
Okay, I hear you on trauma acting as a bridge for an orphaned herbivore. But let's scale this up. Let's talk about the BLT trio.
Oh, Baloo, Leo, and Shere Khan.
Yes, the American black bear, the African lion, and the Bengal tiger.
This case is legendary.
So back in 2001, police found these 3 cubs in a drug dealer's basement in Atlanta. Pitch black, malnourished, covered in parasites.
And Baloo the bear had a harness that had literally grown into his flesh. It was horrific.
It's awful. And their sensory input was limited entirely to just each other's warmth and heartbeats, which completely rewired their developing brains.
Yeah, it locked them in together.
So they get rescued, and they form this incredibly stable 15-year hierarchy at Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary. But here's where I get stuck.
Okay, where?
They eventually grew into massive, lethal, adult apex predators. I mean, biology is biology. If they were apex predators, why didn't the lion and tiger just eat the bear once they reached adulthood and their natural instincts kicked in?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. I mean, a bear is walking meat to a tiger. How does a predator stop doing the calculus of calories?
What's fascinating here is that the environment permanently altered the mathematical realities of their survival.
Altered the math. How?
Well, in the basement, the shared trauma overrode any competition. But at the sanctuary, captivity provides high-calorie, totally consistent food. It eliminates competitive pressure.
So they never had to fight for a meal.
Exactly. Ethologists map this using a modified Lotka-Volterra equation. Usually that models predator-prey dynamics using a predation coefficient.
Which is like the net caloric benefit of a kill.
Right. But in captivity, calories are practically infinite. So the caloric value of treating the bear as prey drops to 0.
Oh, wow.
And in its place, we plug in a social affiliation coefficient. We call it beta.
Beta.
It represents the psychological benefits of companionship. Lower cortisol, regulated heart rate, shared vigilance.
So as long as the beta coefficient outweighs the caloric deficit.
The social unit remains mathematically and biologically stable.
That is wild. It completely melts the predator-prey boundary. It explains how Baloo the bear became the slow-moving emotional anchor.
And Leo the lion was the stoic sentinel just watching from the porch.
Right, and Shere Khan the tiger was the social instigator.
It proves that if you remove the pressure of starvation, trauma can entirely reorganize the social structure of lethal predators.
Okay, so trauma suppresses the hunting instinct mathematically. But suppressing an instinct doesn't change physics.
No, it does not.
If a 500-pound lion is wrestling with a tiny dog, it should be a structural disaster. How do they not accidentally kill each other?
Well, this brings us back to Bone Digger and Milo.
Right, the lion with metabolic bone disease and his 11-pound miniature dachshund buddy. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because instead of triggering a predator-prey response...
The lion's congenital disability actually triggered a protective response in the dachshund.
Exactly. But it's the wrestling that blows my mind. Think about a professional bodybuilder play fighting with a fragile teacup.
That is a great analogy.
Right. To not crush the teacup, your brain has to constantly dampen its own physical output. You calculate the structural limits of the thing you're playing with.
And that is a very high-level cognitive function.
For Bone Digger to let Milo clean his teeth, he has to be doing the same thing.
He is. It's the neurological manifestation of theory of mind. We used to think predators were just reflex-driven killers. Target, then kill.
Just a single track.
Right. But Bone Digger's behavior requires dual-track processing. He has a secondary mental model of the dog's physical fragility.
Wow.
He intentionally handicaps his own physical force. He restrains himself so he doesn't crush the dog. That requires a level of empathy we usually only see in higher primates.
And Milo even mimics the lion's territorial puffing sounds.
Yeah, he integrated acoustically.
So if they can map physical limits, what about emotional states? Like with Tara the Asian elephant and Bella the stray dog.
Ah, Tara and Bella at the Tennessee Sanctuary.
Yeah, Tara bypassed her own species to actively bond with a dog. And this wasn't from trauma. It was an elective emotional connection.
An elective bond, yeah.
And we saw the depth of that empathy. when Bella was paralyzed by a spinal injury.
Right, the sanctuary staff moved the dog into the office. And Tara, an elephant driven by a biological need to forage constantly, she just refused to leave.
She held a 3-week silent vigil by the office balcony.
3 weeks. And when they finally brought Bella out, the immediate vocalizations from the elephant and the tail wagging from the dog, it proved they were actively recognizing each other's emotional states.
But then the real tragedy hit in 2011. Bella was killed by a coyote.
Yeah.
And Tara found her body and carried her over a mile back to the barn.
Which is incredible because documented post-mortem care across species lines is almost non-existent.
And it revealed the actual neurobiology of elephant grief.
It did. Tara's neurochemistry visibly shifted. She fell into clinical depression, somber demeanor, visible tear tracks.
But the other elephants stepped in, right?
Yeah.
Shirley, Sissy, Winky.
Yes. It's called sympathetic intervention. They crowded around Tara to provide deep pressure therapy and actually shared their food with her.
It's a multi-layered emotional network.
Exactly.
For physical safety, emotional connection. What about cognitive mimicry? Do they adopt each other's problem-solving skills?
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about Pumpkin the raccoon.
Yes. Orphaned in the Bahamas, raised by dogs, Toffee and Oreo.
Well, raccoons have a very brief, highly sensitive imprinting window. Their neural pathways frantically look for a social template.
So because Pumpkin only had the dogs, her brain wired itself directly to a canine hierarchy.
Completely. She differentiated their roles perfectly. Oreo was the maternal disciplinarian, and Toffee was the peer playmate.
And she even watched the humans and dogs and figured out how to use the toilet in open containers.
It's domestic synanthropy in action, a wild species molding its cognitive skills to fit a human domestic structure.
Makes me wonder, you know how we treat our pets, right?
Okay.
We walk them, share food. Do non-human primates have a natural psychological desire to care for a pet just like you or I do?
Well, look at Surya, the Bornean orangutan, and Roscoe the hound at the TIGERS Preserve.
Surya intentionally treats that dog like a pet, walks him on a leash, shares monkey biscuits.
In the wild, primates use grooming and food to establish political bonds. Surya just mapped that innate drive onto a dog.
But it's not just a novelty, it's functional.
Extremely functional. Because
Yeah.
orangutans have a biological fear of deep water. They're terrible swimmers.
Surya swims in the lake.
By holding on to Roscoe, he leverages the dog's natural buoyancy to navigate the water. He's using the dog as a tool to overcome his own hardwired biological fear.
That requires insane cognitive flexibility.
And absolute trust.
Okay, but all these are in captivity, right? Managed environments. Does this taxonomic fluidity exist out in the raw, unmanaged wild?
Yes, it does. Look at the scosiotic dolphin found in the Azores in 2011.
Right, a bottlenose dolphin with an S-shaped spine, severe scoliosis.
And wild dolphin pods are fast. If you have a deformity and can't keep up, you get marginalized and you die.
It's like a kid who can't make the track team, so they find a different, more welcoming club to join,
And this dolphin joined a pod of sperm whales.
which is crazy.
But mechanically it works. Sperm whales dive 6,600 feet for squid. Their calves can't survive that pressure, so the adults leave a slow, protective babysitter pod at the surface.
Oh, so the slow environment was perfect for the dolphin.
Exactly. Researchers watched them for 8 days, engaging in reciprocal social rubbing. The dolphin rubbed the whales rubbed back. It is survival-based interspecies altruism in the open ocean.
And now zoologists are using this in captivity, right? Like Kumbali the cheetah and Kogo the lab at the Metro Richmond Zoo.
This raises an important question. How do you biologically soothe an anxious apex predator?
Because cheetahs are incredibly high stress.
Very flight-oriented. If they panic, their immune system crashes, so you give them a canine social anchor.
Kago the dog.
Right. You use emotional contagion. If Kago is calm, Kumbali reads that and suppresses his flight response. Plus, the dog provides the high-speed cardiovascular chase play the cheetah needs.
And Kumbali even chirps if Kago leaves the room.
The attachment is profound.
Okay, but as these bonds become more visible, they are really colliding with our legal systems. What happens when biology clashes with the law?
We are seeing that right now. It's 2026, and look at the legal battle in Queensland, Australia.
Peggy the Staffy and Molly the Magpie. We're going to lay out both sides impartially here. Molly was rescued in 2020 and raised with the dog.
The adaptations are staggering. Molly learned to bark. He wrestles on his back, letting the terrier mouth his wings.
Which for a bird, exposing its belly usually means death.
But for them, it's a shared canine language of play.
But then DSI, the Department of Environment, Science and Innovation, seized the bird. And the Supreme Court revoked their license in November 2024.
Because on one side, you have the conservation argument. Native wildlife shouldn't be domesticated for social media virality.
They're worried about the public wreckage of wild birds by people trying to force these bonds.
Exactly. But on the other side, veterinary assessments prove Molly is so highly habituated that he physically and psychologically cannot be released.
He views himself as part of a canine pack. He literally doesn't know how to be a wild magpie.
It's a very complex knot. We saw something similar in Norway with Sniffer the wild fox and Tinny the dog.
Right. They bonded over the shared Canada language of play.
The play bow. They used that unbroken continuity to signal non-aggression.
And the photographer, Torgeir Berge, used that bond to successfully advocate against the Norwegian fox fur trade.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these cases force human institutions to reconsider our rigid boundaries. The lines between wild and domestic are often just anthropocentric conveniences.
Biology doesn't care about our neat little boxes.
No, it cares about survival and connection.
So, wrapping this up, if you're listening right now, the data proves something incredible. From a 130-year-old tortoise providing sensory safety to an orphan raccoon mapping canine hierarchies.
Or a lion calculating the physical limits of a dachshund.
Exactly. Animals possess the neurological capacity for empathy, complex grief, and sophisticated problem solving. Connection is not a human invention. It is a universal biological drive.
And I'll leave you with this final thought. If a wild magpie can learn a dog's acoustic language, and a sperm whale can adopt a deformed dolphin in the open ocean, it suggests our rigid scientific categories of species are severely limiting. What other rich interspecies languages and alliances are happening out in the wild right this very second, completely invisible to you, simply because we humans haven't learned how to look for them?